Welcome everyone to another episode of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Wario Land 2 for the Game Boy Color, brought to us by Nintendo. Wario Land 2 changed up the formula greatly from the original Wario Land. Wario Land 2 featured multiple different paths and tons of levels to explore. Wario Land 2 also changed up the gameplay greatly. In the original Wario Land, and subsequently the original Mario games, you usually end up getting hit from enemies and lose lives. However, in Wario Land 2, that's taken out of the picture. You actually don't lose lives in any of the levels. There are no lives to be accounted for. However, when enemies end up attacking you, different effects may happen. Normal enemies may knock you back and you'll lose a few coins, and other enemies will cause different effects to happen to Wario. Whether he gets set on fire, or turns icy, or turns into a spring, and you sometimes have to use these different abilities to help you out and actually get to different areas of levels. Wario Land 2 features a lot of levels, and because 100%ing of it takes a long time, how we're going to do this is I'm going to play through the game normally and complete one playthrough of the game, which will be contained in this video. Then there's going to be a separate play it through where I go through all the rest of the different paths, show the other levels, collect the other treasures and map pieces, and show the final true ending of Wario Land 2. When you start up the game, you'll get your opening cutscene before we jump into the first level. We start off in Chapter 1, one noisy morning, and we start off in our bed, and Wario must wake up in order to stop an alarm clock that's going off. Interestingly enough, the very first unlockable secret level is actually unlocked right from the very bed of Wario's. You don't have to actually get up. In fact, if you stay in bed long enough, it'll actually move on to another level, and we'll be doing that later on in the second playthrough of the game. A big part of Wario Land 2, though, is coins, just like Wario Land 1, but the coins are going to be used to help us with the mini-games. You have two mini-games, treasure mini-games, and you have the map piece mini-games. For the first of those mini-games, we're going to stop over here and go inside this door and check out the first treasure mini-game. Here, you have to either hard at 50 coins, normal at 100, or easy at 150, and you spend these coins, a picture will drop on down, and after a countdown, the pictures will flip for just a second. Then you must find the picture that's shown amongst the pictures at the bottom, and if you're correct, you unlock the treasure. What's cool is you can actually do this over and over again until you finally get it right, so that you're able to get the treasure. Of course, you're going to have to spend those coins. Kind of getting an idea of the way the pictures are, the way they look, so that you kind of can just glance at all of the screen at one time, so that when they flip really fast, you can see characteristics of the pictures, so you make sure that you pick the right one, even on the hard difficulty, because it costs so many coins just to play at one time, even on hard. Normal gameplay for Wario, though, is very similar to the original Wario Land, with you being able to jump and stomp and charge into enemies in order to get rid of them. Some levels will end with a door, while other levels will end with a goal achieved, for example, taking out the alarm clock. And at the end of each level, you can complete a little mini-game. Here, what you have to do is use your coins to show one of 9 different squares on this picture. Each of the squares will reveal a piece of the puzzle, which ends up being numbers 0 through 9. You then have to make sure that you have enough of the picture so you know what number it is, and then select it from the bottom. This costs 50 coins per square, so it costs a ton of money. And because of this, you're going to really want to learn the signs of each of the pictures to kind of know from a very early standpoint what the number ends up being just from a very few amount of pictures. So what you're going to really want to do is kind of get a good idea while playing of what you can see from each individual square, and notice that, oh, if that has anything in it, then it could possibly be this number, and process of elimination, slowly get rid of the numbers in your brain until you finally know what exact number it is. And sometimes still you'll have to take a guess just due to the fact you don't have a ton of money. The number, as well as the treasure game, like I'm completing here again for the second time, does get quite tiresome pretty quickly, and unfortunately you have to complete these during each level and at the end of each level in order to get the 100% final true ending to the game. Every single level in Wario Land contains a puzzle room, so part of the fun of the game is exploring and being able to not only locate that treasure room, but then of course find your way through the stage and be able to complete it. Here you can see that the water ends up pushing me to the left, but I'm able to get back on land and get up and then go through this door, pick up this enemy, and use it in order to take out the slime-like creature in the middle. If you try to get close to that slime creature normally, he would end up just bouncing you back, so you have to use another enemy to take him out. Then, over here to the right side, after collecting a few more coins, we run into this faucet a few times to stop it and complete the second stage of the game. Like I mentioned, at the end of each level, you're going to have to do this little number puzzle thing. If you're able to complete it, you get a piece of the treasure map, and getting all the pieces to the treasure map will allow you to enter the final secret stage of the game. Now, if you end up getting the number wrong when you're choosing, if you're just guessing, don't have enough coins, whatever it may be, you can redo the level in order to end up finding the treasure map. Now, your first time through, you can't just go back and choose the level. However, once completing the game one full time, you'll be able to choose any level that you would like to go back to. So you miss a treasure or a piece of the map, you can redo any level. So none of the pieces are missable. A lot of the time when it comes to some of the numbers, I kind of just know from seeing a few pieces of it, and other times I just have to plain up guess, just because I don't really want to waste too much money on it, or I don't have the money in order to do so. In this room, break apart a few of these pots, and then get inside of the bubble, so you can get past the, like, waterfall rapids that is in the water itself, as you normally wouldn't be able to swim through that, because it'll push you down too far. Anytime you see extra coins just slightly out of your way and you're able to get to them, like there's ones in the wall to the left of me, just go ahead and go grab them. You can always use extra coins in this game. In the next part, you'll be swimming on through. Be careful of the bubble so it doesn't end up trapping you and taking you too far upwards towards the beginning of this area. There's not a whole lot on screen during the course of the game. It's just your character, the main game, and in the lower right corner, as you can see, the total coin count that you have on you. Now, in the game, you only have the coins in the level itself that you've collected. But for the number minigame at the end of each level, you have a total amount of coins that you've collected. So whatever you end a level with will just kind of get summed up into like the bank, and you can use that amount in order to play the game. Now use the bubble in order to float up here, break apart these pots, and then be able to enter in this door for the treasure game of this level. After getting out of that, you're going to want to swim on up. You'll have to use another bubble in order to kind of help you up so that you can go over to the left side here. This way you'll be able to break these pots and then go back down again to use another bubble in order to help you float up past the rapids and get up to the door at the top of the screen. Here you're going to want to use the stairs to help you roll on down. You can destroy a couple of the bricks here, collect the coins, and then break open this block in order to set the water free and complete the third stage. When the level begins, immediately go over to the left side and don't get squashed by the giant squash bat. And then move on down to the bottom part. If you do get squashed, you can get full size again from the water droplets. In the next room here, we don't have to be squashed, but we're going to end up doing it just to net ourselves a few extra coins. Ignore the first and second ones and run through the 2 blocks to the right. Once you've done so, then double back and get turned into a pancake. And then you're going to want to jump up the ledges here. If you hold up while jumping, which is key, you'll be able to jump slightly higher. Then fall off the right side, and then you'll be able to bounce in between here and collect a whole bunch of coins on your way down. At the very bottom, hit the water droplet and turn full again. And after collecting a couple more coins, we're going to go through the door. In the next room, watch out for the bats. You can jump up while they're coming down in order to stop them and keep them up. Then you're going to want to charge through and climb up here so you can collect a whole bunch of extra coins. Once again, any coin collecting I do extra in the game, technically, well, is extra. You don't have to do this, but it'll help you out later on, trust me. Then when you want to get small here by ducking and jumping, crawl on through here. You want to make sure you don't get squashed so you can charge through these blocks. Then, just like we did in the previous room, you're going to want to go back a few steps and end up getting squashed. Once you are squashed, you can walk over here. See, because there's little gaps in the floor that you would normally have fallen through. Once you're over to the right, you're going to see the exit to the level. Of course, you're not going to want to hit the droplet and go through there yet. Instead, you're going to want to bounce off the left side here and go through this opening using the correct ledge in order to do so, where you will find the treasure minigame for this level. After the minigame, make sure you don't get hit by the bat, drop on down, and go through the exit to complete another stage. The next level of One Noisy Morning is the final part of it, which is the end of Chapter 1 where we have to battle a giant snake, which is pretty easy. Go over to the right side and do a stomp where there's a big arrow of coins pointing downwards. This will allow you then to get down to this area where you'll climb up the far left side, collecting a whole ton of coins in the process. Once you've done so, you're going to bust through this wall, drop on down here, and complete the treasure minigame for this level. After you've done that, you can drop on down. We're going to drop down once again to the bottom floor here and collect a whole bunch of more coins. Once we have done that, we're then going to go back over to the left and climb on up again. Once we've reached the top, you want to run over to the right side. Watch out for the zombie here. You don't want to be hit by him. And then jump over to the far right where you will find the door. Once you've gone through the door here, bust through the left wall in order to collect a whole bunch of extra coins. And stomp through a line of blocks here where you will drop into this room that contains the boss room. Before going into the boss room, though, we're going to break through the floor, where we will find a ton of extra coins. The big giant Wario coins, as you see, give you 10 regular coins, and there's a lot of them here, so we can have almost 300 coins before we end up entering the boss chamber. Now for the boss itself. Now the bosses in the game, just like the regular enemies, they can't kill you. However, what they end up doing is they end up sending you back, and you'll have to restart the fight from the beginning. The snake boss is really easy. All you gotta do is jump on his head when he's moving back and forth. His eyes will bulge out of his head, and after 5 hits, he will be defeated, and we will move on to the second part of the game. Chapter 2 is the SST Cup, and the first level of it is actually really weird. Our goal is actually find a chicken and bring it back to its nest. You're also going to start seeing these enemy blocks that you can see below me guarding that door. Basically, to get through them, you have to pick up an enemy, any enemy will do, and throw them through them in order to break those blocks, and they'll come in more into play later on in the game. We're going to take the underground path after we did a rolling jump to go through a whole bunch of blocks in order to make it to this door here for the next treasure minigame. After exiting out the door, jump off of the duck's head, bounce up here, collect a whole bunch of coins along the way, and once you are out, you can break open these blocks, crawl underneath, and just to the left you will find the chicken that we're looking for. Make sure that you collect plenty of coins around here, as we'll of course need them later on. Pick up the chicken and start heading to the left. You can bounce off the other giant chicken's head here, and then jump over these enemies who will jump over at you. Here we will pass the block where we rolled under just a few moments ago, and make it back over to where the nest is located, breaking the enemy blocks with the chicken we picked up. Once you are back over here, throw the chicken into the nest, wait a few seconds, an egg will appear, and you will complete the level. In the beginning of the next level, we're going to charge up a couple of these hills, take the upper path, because there's also a bottom path here as you can see. Watch out for the penguins throwing bombs. If they hit you, you're going to be like kind of confused and dizzy for a period of time. Just really an annoyance. It never really comes in handy. As you're moving through, duck under another one of these penguins' bombs. You can throw them, but you basically just want to stomp on through these rocks and go into the water down below. You're going to see my favorite enemy just above. These guys, these little foxes with the fire, they are just so adorable when they then put the torch in their mouth and use that to shoot at you. It's just one of the coolest things in the game. Either way, we're going to roll down this hill here and jump up here. We want to make sure that we stop so that we can then get our sure footing so we can charge through these rocks and go into the treasure minigame. What's great is right after the level ends, you can drop down, collect some more coins, and boom! You're already at the exit of the level, and we can move on to the next stage. As we begin the next level, you're going to jump over and collect a whole bunch of coins before getting down into the water down below. These fish here won't cause any adverse effects to you, but they will knock a few coins out of you if they run into you. So anytime you can, you want to get out of their way before trying to get past them. Collect coins up here and then go through the door, and then you're going to actually jump on the backs of seagulls in order to make your way across. Here you're going to have to jump across a couple of them in a row in order to make it to the door in the upper right. Now here's one of the most annoying enemies in the whole game. These guys don't cause you to have any weird effects or anything, but if they hit you, they drop coins from you. You have to wait for them to stop chomping their jaws up and down, and you'll be able to run into them with a charge in order to get rid of them. They take up a lot of space, and you can't just simply walk past them, and that's why they're absolutely one of the most annoying enemies in the game. In the next area, go through the door, and then in this area with the eels, you want to dash through. Be careful to bait this one before going past, because it's a smaller area. Get grabbed by this eel, and you'll find the treasure door. After collecting the treasure and then rushing through the waters back to the left, you're going to go all the way back right, going past all the eels once again. Just this time, of course, we're not going to get grabbed by the one eel. Like I said before, if you can get some extra coins without putting yourself too far out of the way, always go ahead and do it. It's just better to do it that way. So grab as many of these coins as you swim your way through. Thankfully, swimming's pretty good in the game. Not perfect, but pretty good. And you'll eventually make it to the ship. Once you make it to the ship, you want to jump out of the water. You'll have a couple of the ducks with the swords in their hands, but the door is easily right next to it, and you can finish up the level. For the next level, start off by dashing on through, and you're introduced to one of my other favorite enemies. These little chef guys throw cake into your mouth and turn you fat. We're not going to deal with the first ones that we see, but instead we're going to go through the rooms, dash on through, and get to this room. Then go over to the left, get the cake from these guys, and then you're going to turn to Fat Wario. As Fat Wario, you stomp and get through all enemies very easily. And you also cause little earthquakes as you walk. And because of this, though, you move really slow, but we need to in order to break through all the slimes and get into this room up here. Once in this room, deal with a few enemies. You're going to have to kind of like move this enemy along with you, because what you need it for is to destroy a slime that you can see above. Use the enemy, toss him at the slime, and then go through the door up here. In this room, you're going to bounce off of this enemy, up above, land on this platform, then dash and bounce up here to make it to the treasure room. When you make it out of the treasure room, we're going to drop on back down, though, this time to the left side, and enter through this door once in here. Wait until the enemy throws a wonderful piece of cake in your face so that you can eat it up. And then you're going to drop down. Make sure you hold up when holding right here as well, so you can break through all the blocks and work your way down to this door. In order to work off that extra few pounds, just walk into the wall for a few seconds, and then go through the other door and push this anchor with a couple of charges in order to finish up the level. The next level is to defeat Bobo. Bobo, if you remember, is also an enemy from Wario Land 1 as he returns here. In the first part of this level, we're going to bust through the floor here and collect a few extra coins. If you bring an enemy down with you, you can actually use it to bounce off of and collect some extra coins, but since I didn't bring him down, we're just going to move on, move to the next door, go right to the next door, and then walk across this top portion of the ship, and you'll find a door on the far right. Then you're going to jump up, avoid an enemy, collect a bunch of coins along the way, and then use the enemy to bust through the right wall here, where you can collect a whole bunch of more coins. Then go through the door right on here. In the next room, you're going to collect a couple extra coins, drop on down, grab this dude right here. We're going to be using him. Jump up to the right and then hold the button in and throw him. If you hold the throw button in, you can actually kind of aim the enemy and do a more powerful throw to them. So we're going to do a really powerful straight throw in order to open up the way to this door for the treasure room. Then, after the treasure room, climb on back on through into the bottom portion here, deal with the same enemy we just actually threw a few moments ago, and go through the door not too far after that. Here, we're just going to charge through and collect some extra coinage, and go through the door on the far right where we can collect even more coinage before then retreating and going through the boss door to get ready for the fight with Bobo. Now, for this boss fight, it's a very easy fight. We just have to end up jumping on him. However, he uses kind of a winged move that pulls us upwards that will send us off screen and have us repeat the same battle again. Of course, you're going to want to avoid that, so the best way to do that is hold down. Just hold down every time you jump on his head. This way, you'll be able to avoid him pulling you up, because when you're holding down, you put that force towards the ground and put the pressure on of staying low to the ground, and that wing can't pull you up towards the ceiling. After a couple of hits, he will change color, if you're using the Game Boy Color version of the game, of course, and you can deliver that final hit, and after the battle, we can move on to the next part of the game. At the beginning of the next level, we're going to be introduced to the owls, and you can grab a hold of them and actually control them using the D-pad to move them in the other directions. It's a little bit slow, and it's not precise when you're pressing the arrow keys. As you can see, there's a little bit of a delay, so you have to compensate for that. While traveling through this area, we're going to avoid the birds and pick up a whole bunch of extra coins before going through the door on the opposite end. In the next room, you're also introduced to another new enemy. This guy is a fish that tries to lure you out with a fake coin. As you can see, there's a gray coin located there. We don't want to actually hit the first one, but we do want to attach ourselves to the second fake coin and get reeled on up by the fish so that we can go through this door up here in order to find the treasure room. After getting out of the room, we can take out the fish if you want, collect some extra coins before going back to the left side and going back down into the water below. Of course, this time around, we're going to avoid both of the fake coins as we swim on through. In the next room, you're going to have to pick up the enemy on the left side and then use it in order to take out the blob-like enemy above so you can make it through to the other side. Following up with that, there will be another owl room. Here we're going to wake up the owl by charging into him, then attach, and start flying through the air, avoiding the spikes that are moving up and down and left and right. As you'll notice, of course, while you're doing this, if you end up getting hit by this guy, you'll end up getting knocked down to the waters below and get rushed all the way back to the beginning of the area. In the next room, ignore the slime to the right as you won't be able to hit it yet, and go down below where you'll have to run into another enemy and carry him up to the top floor so that you can then take out the slime. The slimes are one of the most annoying enemies this game has to offer. Next up, more owl, as you'll be able to attach to another owl and have to go through and collect a whole bunch of coins if you would like to, or you can just go straight on through if you think you have enough for the level, and when you make it to the end, you will be at the end of the stage. For the next level, start off by running over to the right side. You can use the fox enemy if you would like to get some extra coins on that right side by breaking through the fire blocks. But we're going to ignore that because we can get plenty of coins throughout the rest of the normal level. In the next room, you're going to jump on this turtle's back. It's going to start moving along, and you'll have to move along with it, taking out enemies. If for some reason you end up missing the turtle, you fall off, you'll be carried back to the beginning of the area via the rapids. When you make it to the end of this area, and the turtle unfortunately does move a little bit slow, but just slow enough that you'll be able to always keep up with them no matter what the hazards end up being, because you'll be dealing with more of the turtle right away in the next room. Be careful when you're in this section though. The fire enemies are very much a nuisance because if they end up hitting you, you're gonna end up in the rapids down below and have to restart the area. Wait for this guy to attack with the fire into the rock, and then bust through the rock, where you'll be able to charge the rock and destroy him as well. In the next room, do a stomp to the first fox you run into, but leave the second one alive as we're going to use him to then bounce up and off these walls. A little bit tricky to time the jumping just right, but you want to climb up here using your fire ability, or basically Wario on fire, and bounce back and forth until he turns into a flaming Wario, where you can then drop into the water below, breaking the rocks and finding the treasure room. After the room, we're going to backtrack down to the bottom section, catch ourselves on fire for a second time, and now use this to then bounce up and down right here, and until we turn to a flaming Wario and bust through the rocks to the right, we'll be able to go through the door. After going through the door, it's time to battle the giant spearman. Get used to this fight. You're going to be doing it a lot in this game. Basically, you just bounce on his head, and you can actually repeatedly bounce on his head over and over again. He'll change colors, eventually into a red color, knowing that he's about to die. Every time you defeat a giant spearman, though, they will drop 100 coins, so that really helps out. There's probably about 5 or 6 of the giant spearman levels in the course of the game. For the next level, we're going to start off by heading over to the right. You're going to see a lot of the purple up and down moving spiky skulls. Of course, these guys thankfully can't kill us in the game, but they will knock about 6 or 7 coins out of you when they end up running into you. Go to the top portion of the level and head over to the left. Drop down here so you can collect a bunch of extra coins, including taking out the enemy, and then drop down once again in order to go through this door here. Once you've traveled through the door, climb up and then start bouncing on the seagulls located here. Make your way all the way to the right, and you'll be able to collect a quite hefty sum of coins. Then drop back over to the left, stomp through these rocks, and go through the door located below. In the next room, be very careful of all the spike guys. Like I said before, if you run into them, they will take a few coins away from you. There's also not a whole lot of invincibility time where you actually have control of Wario post getting attacked in the game, so you always have to be careful of that. You want to roll down this hill and then jump up so you go through the middle section of rocks where you will find the treasure game for this level. After the treasure game, go out to the right, and then you can collect a couple extra coins if you want before going through the door in the bottom here, where you will find another owl section. For this first section, our goal is actually to go to the very bottom here. There's a door located on the ground level in the middle. That's our goal. However, if you fly through, you can collect a bunch of extra coins if you would like to. In order to get down there, though, you will end up having to take a hit. So we do, but the coins we end up losing, we gotta right back again for the ones on the ground level. And then in the next room, you can attach yourself to another owl and fly on through. And about halfway through the room will be the gold door. For the next level, start off by running to the right and taking out the first bee using a charge move, and then do the same for the second one. The bees, if they end up hitting you, will cause you to inflate with an allergic reaction and you'll float up to the top, which can be very annoying but useful in other areas. In the next area, we're going to be riding on the turtle's back, just like we did in the previous level, and you'll have to make your way through, deal with a few enemies, and stomp on through some blocks along the way. In the next room, you're going to want to get hit by the first bee that you end up seeing, and you're going to end up floating up, and you need to break through these couple of blocks here, and then you'll deflate when you make contact with the ceiling. Charge through the rocks on the right side, and then drop on down. Once you do so, you're going to want to avoid the next couple of bees, and go through the door here. Once in here, watch out for the first bee that you come in contact with, and you're going to use the next bee, and we're going to bounce up so that we can end up going inside this door to find the treasure room for this level. After the treasure room, we're going to jump out and head on down to the lower right. We can break open the first block if you want to, but basically you're going to make a pathway so that you can then use the hill on the far left of this area to roll on through, jump through the rocks, and crash right next to the exit gate. For the next level, start on crawling through. Watch out for a couple extra bees. Basically, you're going to want to hesitate just a second before coming fully out of the area that you're squatting underneath. That way the bees try to come on down and they end up missing you. In the next room here, we're going to be trying to get to a door that's just slightly above us. You can actually spring off of enemies. You can kind of set them up or use them in order to bounce up, but sometimes they unfortunately get out of your way. The other easiest way to then do this is actually to be inflated by the bee so that you float upwards. After deflating, you can enter the door located up here. In the next room, hit the enemy to the left and then throw him through the blocks on the right so you can go on through and you'll see a whole bunch of coins. In the ground itself is actually a hole that you can fall through, and if you do so, you'll be able to make it to the treasure room. After the treasure room, you're going to want to head up. You can collect a whole bunch of coins, and then go back through the previous door that we had entered from. Once back here, drop down, avoid the bee, and then go through the door at the bottom. Right to the right of this is the boss chamber, and it's time to fight the giant bee boss. For this boss, you want to make sure you avoid getting hit by him so you don't end up inflating and floating up to the top and have to restart the battle. He'll fly back and forth a little bit, eventually crashing on down, and you'll be able to then do a stomp on top of his head to hurt him. Then little bees will end up spawning from the two hives on the left and right side. After the first hit, there's only one bee, but after each other hit, there'll be two bees to deal with. The little bees can also inflate you with the allergic reaction type ability, just like the big guys, so try to do your best to avoid them, and you can just do a little bump into them in order to get them off screen. You don't have to land on top of them. For the final time, you'll have to deal with both the little bees, and then he will also re-emerge, and you'll have to battle them all at the same time. After you've delivered 3 hits to the boss, we move on to the next area of the game. Chapter 4 is in town, and we start off on a train. You're going to be busting through a couple of boxes in order to make it to the far right, and our goal is to get to the end of the train where we can hit the switch to actually turn off the train. There's plenty of coins to collect throughout the first few rooms, and when you want to climb up here, you want to duck down and jump up to the very top. This way you'll be able to make it through the room, you'll have to push an enemy out of the way, and you also get a decent amount of coins while doing this as well. After getting out the other side here, we're going to take out this enemy and then jump up a couple of the ledges to the roof of the trains. Once up here, you can charge over and jump over to the right side. You want to also avoid the birds that are going to start charging at you. Of course, if they run into you, you're going to end up losing a few coins and possibly get knocked back down into the train itself. You want to fall down this opening, which takes you to an area with some coins, but also the important treasure room door for this level. Once you've gotten the treasure, go back to the roof of the train and continue along. You can take out this duck enemy do a big running charge, and you'll be able to actually land on top of this platform and continue along the top of the train, eventually dropping down this opening, which is the end, where you'll be able to take out an enemy slime using the other enemy, and then hit the switch on the far right to finish up the stage. In the next level, start off by charging and running on through to the far right, and then start climbing up the staircases. When you make it to the next floor, of course, the screen will scroll upwards, and you can collect some coins, and you'll have to avoid this enemy in the windows that likes to throw bottles at you. At first, the first one you deal with is really easy because you're not going to have to worry about getting hit and knocked back, but a lot of times you're going to find them on these very small platforms where you're going to have to quickly jump to the next one, usually making contact with him while also avoiding the bottle. Enter the window on the far right section and then climb up the staircase inside, collecting a lot of big coins, and go through the other window that you can access via the dresser to the right. Once back out onto the main part of the building, you're going to continue climbing up the stairs, jumping on a few enemies, and doing a little bit of platforming. Of course, at any point you end up falling down to the platform below, you'll have to climb back on up. When you make it up to these flower pots, you can enter inside of the next window, and once in here, climb on up, and what you're going to want to do is jump across these little platforms to the far left, where you're going to have access to this furnace that you can then charge into a bunch. It'll drop down, and then you use the furnace to go through the window and back out here. Once you are back out here, climb up another staircase, watch out for another couple of enemies, and collect a bunch of coins from the left side. Then you can use the enemy that's coming out of the window to bounce upwards and get up to this portion. After a couple of nicely timed platforming jumps via more of those guys with the bottles, you'll make it to the top floor where you can go through the very first door and then charge on through to the far right where you'll enter the treasure room. Once you've gotten the treasure, you can go back to the far left, and then through the previous door, run to the right this time, and run through the gold door. At the beginning of the next level, you're going to be inside of a big building. Here, we're going to activate an elevator and then drop down. Now, unfortunately, I end up making a little bit of a mistake here. I end up eating the cake before charging through the boxes to the far left. So, I'll break these boxes, and then I have to walk off the cake, break the boxes, and then eat more cake so that I can get over to that left side. The elevator on the far left can't be activated, or the ledge can't be activated unless you are a certain weight, so we have to make sure that we eat that cake after breaking those crates, and we'll be able to stomp down. You can jump onto the top ledge here and collect a few extra coins, walk it off, and then go through the door down below. Now, in the next room, charge through the box to the left, and then you want to charge and bust through using a butt stomp through the blocks down below. Once here, use the enemy, pick him up, and throw him through the enemy blocks so that you destroy him and you can make it through. Then do the same thing with the next enemy and throw him upwards to break some more enemy blocks, and then go through the door here. Once in here, the elevator to the right will lift you slowly upwards. Be careful to avoid the cake, because we don't want to get that. Then you're going to want to use the next 2 elevators to work your way up. Once up here, break open some blocks, but avoid another one of those cake enemies, though you can use this guy to bust open a few more enemy blocks nearby, where you can charge on through and reveal a door. Once in here, jump up straight up by holding the up on the D-pad so you can collect a big coin, and then do so to the room to the right. Now this is optional, but it gives you a good amount of coins, and you may not quite be at 50 coins yet in order to play the minigame. Then drop down in the opening just to the right, and this is where you're going to find the treasure room for the level. After collecting the treasure, use the elevator to climb on back up, and we're going to charge through some blocks to the right, fall down a couple of floors, then activate this elevator and go down. Go down a few more until you're located on the 2nd floor. Once on the 2nd floor, go all the way to the left, eat a piece of cake so you can activate the ledge right below you, and make it down to the 1st floor. Once here, walk over to the left, and slowly but surely work off that weight. You can bust through a little bit of rock right before you'll have to just walk in place until you get thin again, where you can then charge. After dealing with this enemy and going through the door, in the next room, you can collect some coins and drop down into the water below, avoiding the drill-nosed fish that will be meeting you once you make it to the bottom of this section. Just time it so that you can run into them without running directly into his nose, so you can avoid losing any of the extra coins you've collected. Once you go on through the door, head to the right. You don't want to use the elevator to go up. If you end up activating it, just collect the coins, but don't jump too far up. And then charge through the blocks on the right, where you'll find the goal. The next level is a factory-themed level. Start off by going to the right. You're going to have those enemies that activate once you stomp on the ground or charge into them. These guys are always annoying, and you're in a really tight area, so you can't avoid them at all. You'll have to take out each individual one. So, once you've done so, though, head over past the spikes. You'll see the gold door to the right, but we can't activate it yet. In the next room, work against the conveyor belt so you can go into this door here. Go through, activate the switch, and then go back to the left, dropping down. Once you have dropped down, you're going to want to work your way to the right, and you'll find a hidden door located behind all the boxes you can break. Once in this room, use the conveyor belt to actually go downwards by ducking, and you'll make it down to this area here, and you'll be able to work on through, activate another switch, but don't go back yet. Go to the door to the right to find the treasure room. After getting the treasure and making sure that you've hit the switch just one time, you want to go back through and then climb back up, making sure that you duck here when you jump, or else you won't be able to make it through. Go back to the previous room and go back up and reactivate the switch we just did a few moments ago. This way we'll reverse the conveyor belts once again, but now everything's set up so we can access the goal of the level. It can be really tricky and annoying sometimes to get into these doors, especially with the moving conveyor belt. Once you're finally, though, able to access the button and you kind of have everything going this way, go back to this room, and then you're going to want to climb on up using these ledges. You'll be able to now slide through here and access the goal. The next level is one of my favorites in the game, mainly just for the boss fight. When we start off, go over to the far right, and you can climb up if you want to collect some extra coinage, but our goal is actually just going straight on right. Once on the next screen, start off by climbing up the stairs, watching out for the enemies, and running your way through to the right. You have to go upwards because you can't get past some of the crates that you can see just to the left of me before I access the next room. Now, once over here, you want to climb up the large staircase to the very far right. Keep climbing upwards, and then you can collect some extra coins and go through the window on the very top floor. Once you're on here, charge and then drop, do one of the butt stomps through the right part of the floor. Once you've done so, pick up the enemies and then use them to bust through the rocks, and then go through this door here where you'll be able to do the treasure game. After the treasure game, it's time for the boss fight. We're going to get there by climbing back up and going through the window that we took to get into this room. The window to the right of that actually is where you end up getting sent to if you ended up getting hit and losing to the fight. Go inside this room here and then go into the boss room itself. For this boss, you're fighting a large rabbit who actually is a basketball player. What you have to do is jump on his head, he'll turn into a ball, and then you'll pick up the ball and throw it into the hoop. Your goal is to get 3 points before he does. It's actually a really cool mechanic. It can be a little bit clumsy in order to actually get him into the basket, but with a little bit of practice you should be able to do so pretty easily, and you can move on to the next level of the game. It's now time for the final chapter of the first run of ours in Wario Land 2. At the beginning of the first part of Syrup's Castle, we're going to be using our old turtle friend to help us get past some rapids. Activate him by jumping on his back and then ride along with him as he very slowly makes his way through. There are some annoyances like the spikes here that are just aimed there to knock you backwards into the rapids, so you sometimes have to jump over and avoid them. At the end of the area, go through the door, and in this room, you'll have those annoying enemies that only come awake once you end up stomping or run into them, and you thankfully only have to take out a couple of them, but you'll have to dodge more than a couple in order to them to finally stop and then go through the door on the far right side. In the next room, you're going to activate the owl on the right side and then use him to start flying up. Just like normally with this owl, there is a few hazards you're going to have to avoid, like these birds. Just go up slightly enough that they activate and start coming towards you, and then immediately press down on the D-pad, giving you plenty of time to collect all the coins before then moving up to the next area. The one here is a little bit more difficult, as you'll have to activate them and quickly backtrack and go into the little nook they give you before then collecting the coins and going up. Now the door that we need is just to the right there, but if we go upwards and avoid some spikes, we can get a whole bunch of extra coins. Once in the next room, just work your way over to the far right, nothing too special here, and then in the next, more owl time, as we'll be able to attach to the owl and work our way up. The spikes moving back and forth don't move too far, they only move a little bit, so it's a really small window that you have to work with when it comes to avoiding them. After going into the next room, watch out for the next couple of enemies that are in your way and go through the door on the other side. Here, start climbing upwards, avoiding the guys throwing bottles. You have to move fast because some platforms will end up falling, but it's not too difficult of a room to get through. At the top portion, there's going to be another one of those fire guys, as well as the goal, but don't go through the goal yet. Bust through the rocks to the right for the first column. Then, set yourself on fire and move back and forth until you're just a flaming mess, and you'll be able to go through the second pillar. Then you can access this door, which is the treasure room. After accessing the treasure room and completing this, you just go back to the left a little bit and go through the goal gate. The next level starts you off at the very top left corner of this area. We're going to start by charging through a bunch and avoiding the monkey enemies. These guys use their hammers to turn you into the Spring Wario, which really gets annoying, so you're going to try to avoid that at all costs. After busting through to the lower right and falling through the floor once again, there's another one of the monkey hammer guys waiting for you, and there's a decent amount of coins to collect. In this room, start off by going to the right and get turned small via the wizard. Once you've done that, drop on down, and then you can jump through these small narrow openings. Do this till you make it to the far right and then turn big again using the water just to the right of that and go through the door. Here, you're going to be jumping on furniture while going over rapids, similar to what we did in the very beginning of the game. Climb up here to this portion and then go through the treasure room. After exiting out of the treasure room, make sure you collect a whole bunch of the extra coins just to the left of the treasure room, and then drop on down through this narrow opening. Once here, wait for the right opportunity to avoid the spikes, as well as jump on the furniture in the water. In the next room, you're going to have some narrow platforms so you can jump on these enemies in order to get rid of them while quickly making your way through. Once you are in the next room, climb on up, and then you have these really small, narrow passageways, which just get annoying because you have to bait the birds so that they come towards you, and then you can either avoid them by jumping over them completely or stomp on them. Either way, you're going to want to hit this switch. Once you've done so, climb back through the room, back around to the door that we entered from. Once back in here, you can now see the blocks have moved downwards. Normally they would have been higher up if you didn't see that right before we had entered that room. And then go through into this room. Watch out for the ice guys. The ice ability is pretty annoying and really doesn't come in handy. Run on through all the way to the right, and you may accidentally end up getting hit by the ice guy. If you time a jump with the ice ability, you'll get stuck in the ceiling for just a second, allowing it to go away and then you can fall down. If normally you get hit by it, you'll be rushed all the way backwards away from the enemy, which is really annoying. Either way, the exit goal is just above. The next level has a pretty weird concept. It's defeat the 4 ducks, and well, that's what we're going to be doing. There's 4 ducks located in the level. When you defeat the 4th and final one, you complete the stage. Start off by going to the upper left, and you'll go through the number 1 door. Here, be very careful of the ghosts as they turn you into the weird zombie Wario that basically just turns you into a weird mess that falls through normal platforms. Avoid the ghost the best you can and then go through the door up here. Once in here, you'll see the duck to the right, crawl on through and then stomp through the blocks. Destroy the duck by just knocking him off. He's just a normal duck enemy that we've dealt with many times already throughout the game. Once you have taken care of him, then backtrack to the previous room. Once you get back down to this room, you can avoid the ghost to the left and collect some extra coins if you want to, but it can be really hard to sometimes avoid that ghost. As long as you have about 50 coins, at least you're good enough so you can do the mini-game in just a bit. Go down to the lower right corner once back into the main halls with the numbers. Then we're going to do a trick here. We're going to jump forward on these spikes and then face left just before we hit the spikes. This way it actually causes us to go right by going backwards, because you always get knocked back wherever direction Wario is facing. This way you can avoid having to deal with the rats and bouncing on them and getting all through that. You can just get straight over to where the treasure room is. Repeat the same process we just did a few minutes ago to move to the left, and this time, of course, just turn right before you end up making contact with the spikes, and you can make it through this area a lot quicker than they intended you to. Then, once up here, lure the mouse with you in order to then bounce off his head and get over here to the right. In the next room is the second of the ducks. What we have to do is get over to this platform, pick up this crystal or glass, and then throw it at the duck to the upper right. Knock him off his perch, and then destroy him. You have to pick up the glass or cube or ice or whatever it is, and if you end up throwing those ice cubes or whatever they are, they end up shattering when you throw them, so you'll have to backtrack and pick it up again and then use it. Once you're back into the main hall, go now through the center door. Here you'll be able to climb through, avoiding some enemies, and eventually we're going to make it to a switch that we can use in order to kind of reverse the room, the previous main room, so that we have access to the other 2 numbered rooms that we haven't been able to go to yet. Once you're back in the main hall, go to the lower left and again go through the number 3 door. Here you're going to use that same ice cube or glass cube, whatever it is, and then throw it through a whole bunch of blocks to your right. You can't go just straight on through because there's some blocking you near the very end. Now, you could make kind of a path using the cube so that you could climb up and over, or just keep busting them all the way through until you're able to make it. Sometimes you'll find some hidden coins, like I was able to find a hidden 100 coin located inside. Once you're able to have enough space, and I accidentally end up going back and picking up an extra cube, I don't technically need this one, but either way, you then go through the door on the right. Once in this room, drop down and stomp right directly on the duck's head. The platform that he's on, that ledge, is kind of a see-through platform that you can't land on yourself, but enemies can walk on it. So what you have to do is knock him off of that, or you can just straight up destroy him with a butt stomp. Either way, once he's destroyed, backtrack some more, and now we're going to enter the number 2 door. Once here, you can climb up if you want to, but you're going to want to hit the ghost on the far left side. This way, you'll fall through the zombie form all the way through to the very bottom of this room. Once you're in here, go through this door and you'll be in the last of the duck rooms. Go on down to the very bottom, then bust through the blocks just enough to free the duck, run into him, and finish the stage. For the next level, start off by busting through a series of blocks into the pillar. Once you've done so, you're going to want to stomp in this area to destroy this block, and then continue stomping into this area. Basically, the gimmick for this level has a lot of hidden passageways, stomping and jumping on the right spots in order to reveal hidden paths. Once you get to the door in the lower right into the next room, charge on through, breaking a whole bunch of blocks along the way until you make it here, where you do more butt stomping in order to get into the lower portion. Here, it becomes basically a maze for a little bit while you're working your way around, and once down to the very bottom floor, charge on through, wait for this enemy by destroying him, and then keep going over to the far left. Here, you'll be able to break open a couple of blocks and go through the floor. It's a lot of charging and maneuvering, and it can be really tricky, especially even here. You gotta fall through a very small opening to get down, avoiding the spikes, and then charge through another pillar. Basically, if you end up running into a dead end with the charging of just breaking the blocks, try to do the butt stomp or jump straight up into the air to hit the ceiling above you in order to form enough of a path so that you can get through, and eventually you'll make it to a door in the very lower right corner of this room. In the next room, deal with a couple of pelicans, either by stomping on them or just jumping on them to avoid them. Either way, make it to the next door. Now here, our actual goal to get to the exit goal is to the right. However, to get to the treasure room, you have to go to the left. While running through the left, you actually pass the goal down below us. And the path to get all the way through here to the treasure room is very annoying. This is one of my least favorite levels to have to go through, because it's a lot of just kind of charging at the blind spots, making sure you know what path you're supposed to take. Now, if you charge through this hidden wall here, you'll be able to find a few extra coins. So if you don't have quite 50 coins yet, you should be able to easily have that before you end up making it to the treasure room. Once you drop down here, you can avoid this enemy, go through this door, and complete the treasure. After getting the treasure for the room, now you just gotta backtrack. Thankfully, the path's now already cleared, because we slowly but surely charged through all the blocks. And once you make it back to that center room where you started off here, we're now going to be traveling to the right this time. The whole concept is the exact same. You're going to charge through to the right, charge through a whole bunch of blocks. You'll find some hidden little areas that are a little bit more open. You'll have to deal with one of those enemies. Keep stomping and charging until eventually you make it all the way around and go through the goal of the stage. Next up is our final level of our first playthrough through Wario Land 2. Start off this room by going up the very small ledges, avoiding the guys throwing the bottles at you. This is optional, you don't have to come up here, but you can collect a lot of coins and have well over 50 before you even go through to the next room. After you're satisfied with collecting enough coins, go through the door in the lower right. In the next room, avoid the bird enemy to the right by activating him and then running away, or you can just avoid him altogether. Then climb up the small platforms with these ice guys. These ice guys are always extremely annoying. If they hit you, they end up sending you backwards, and they're just a real pain to deal with. Either way, on the far right side, we have more of the ice guys, and you have to get one of them in your possession. And doing so can be tricky because it's hard to lift them, as well as the other ones that are in the room just keep firing ice at you. Once you finally have been able to pick up one, climb up the small ledges and go to the left where you can bust through the wall using the enemy himself. If you bust through another wall to the left of the door that we need to go through, there are some extra coins if you didn't pick up enough in the previous room. Now up here, what you're going to want to do is the butt stomp ability to help you out. This can be annoying, but if you're able to do so, you then want to pick up the enemy and carry him along with you. If you end up activating the platform, thankfully it does respawn after you go off screen slightly, but you need to use one of these penguins to destroy the walls and go through to the next room. Now, once in here, you're going to want to go on through, charge through this wall, and find the treasure room. With the treasure room complete, go back to the left and enter the door here for the boss chamber, the final boss of our first run. Captain Syrup will be flying overhead, and there's going to be enemies to deal with that she shoots out, and fire rising from the bottom. If the fire hits you, it carries you all the way to the ceiling, and you have to restart the whole fight. For the boss fight itself, you need to bounce the enemies back at her, so if you time it right before she drops one, you can actually jump up at the same time and knock it right at her right away. Now for the second portion of the fight, things are a lot tougher. She throws out bombs, and what you have to do is throw the bombs into the fire that's rising, and it'll shoot upwards. And if you time it just right, it'll run into her, but getting the fire to line up along with her can sometimes be rather difficult. Like I said before, if you end up getting hit by the fire itself, you too will also be carried up to the top and you'll have to restart. Thankfully, you only have to hit her twice and you can sit back and enjoy the ending to Wario Land 2. So there we have our first run through of Wario Land 2, and what's interesting for those who love a game with a lot to do, we're actually only 50% done the game at this point. 50% done the treasures and maps, so we have a lot still to go. One thing that's really cool about the game is once you've completed it, when you go back, you can select whatever level you've already completed to go back to. So this way you can instantly go to the levels that have hidden exits and go right to those hidden exits. You don't have to replay the entire game from the start and get to those specific spots. Overall though, Wario Land 2 was a personal favorite of mine as a kid, but I honestly never went through and was able to find all the hidden treasures, and as well as all the hidden rooms and different pathways. And there's a lot here. There's also a lot of extra bosses in the game that you don't end up having to deal with if you don't want to. Overall, while I prefer the original Wario Land mostly for nostalgia reasons only, Wario Land 2 is a fantastic game that has a lot to it. The whole aspect of puzzle solving, kind of using the abilities to help you find some of the secrets, and there's so many secrets, I never found them all before until recently. If you've enjoyed Wario Land 2 and its whole puzzle solving elements, definitely Wario Land 3 takes this whole idea and expands upon it, making it even bigger and the more really cool abilities you end up getting from enemies' attacks. They put a lot of love and care into Wario Land 2 and 3, and I don't think they're as fondly remembered as some of the other many classic Mario or Nintendo-related games. At the end of the credits, you'll get presented by Nintendo and finally an end screen, and then from here, you'll get to see your total percentage complete, where we get to see that we've completed 50% of the levels, 50% of the treasures, and 50% of the map. From there, you can then actually click on through by pressing the buttons, and you'll go to see how many treasures exactly you have collected so far. You can also then go check out how much of the map you've completed, and then actually the path of the levels you have taken so far. And it shows you where levels branch off, so it really gives you a good hint on where you should be checking in order to find these alternate paths. And you can also see that the game has alternate endings. They don't all lead to just that final battle that we did. They all lead to actually individual different boss battles for the most part. However, with that, that's going to wrap up this edition of Play It Through. Be sure to tune in for part 2 where I'll be going through all the rest of the levels. But I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.